All right, here we are. This is where we ended up leaving off. I think I might have gone a little bit. Further after I stopped recording the other night. So I think that's where I'm going to start with today. This is a minor thing. This is not going to make the sled go any faster. But mounting this is near impossible at this point. These little guys are what they used, and these are the problem. These are not working for shit. So this is a mess is what it is. Oh, that's the one. That is the one. So I'm pretty certain what's going to happen here is I'm going to hog these bolts out and then the alignment's going to be off. I'll bet. Well, I'll be doggone. This might work. Do I got to? Give it a little pinch. Tighten it up. A little pinch. Tighten it up, a pinch. Alright, and now we're going to try to back this tool out. Get this set good. Now let's see if it's set straight, because like I said, it can twist real easily. Alright, so I grabbed a couple of bolts. We're using Yamaha bolts on all this stuff. We're not using willy-nilly shit from the hardware store. No, I said I was going to do fuel, but I want to do coolant. I want to do coolant. Let's do coolant. So this is in, and the reason this is in now is because I can't do a bunch of coolant stuff and not have major components that are going to be there that in the way. I need to know what's going to be where. What's going to be where? Yeah. So what they had going here, something like this. See a U. So I'm mostly going to be doing away with this kind of behavior. Where we're at here, so with this here I can kind of do a little bit of fit up that I need. Alright, I got one of these guys. We'll use that, but I'm probably going to make this happen like right here. Probably pull that out of there and plug that, because this air intake temp is when this thing had a standalone fuel management system. Not what we're doing. So the first thing I want to do to cut this down is not measure first. Right. So I tried to make sure really when I cut this, I wanted it as short as possible, so I just tried to leave enough here to where that would roll in, and I'm gonna cut this one back now too, But you kind of see what we're going to be dealing with here this time. So I am going to plug this. This is getting in my way. But we're going to do, yeah, we're going to do that right there. So I'll probably end up also cutting the top of this U. Probably very similar, just heading straight into that tank. Because I'm not going to want that tank to be back in here. I'm going to want that tank to be right in this area. So I think this location is going to be nice. This is going to be fillable. It should hide away under the hood, no problem. But what we've got going here as far as the fuel system goes, this is a surge tank. I'm going to polish this. I've got a little external fuel filter here. It's coming off of the Walbro pump. Couple A-N fittings. This is a 10 mil A-N fitting that I put on here, which is a 90-degree redirect because it's pretty tight in here. And then what this tank is going to do is, this is a surge tank, 3/4 of a gallon surge tank. It did have the brass fittings. I've already swapped a little bit of it out for the AN that we're going to use. We're going to use 6 AN on everything. So basically the deal here is the surge tank sits up front here. That tank, the fuel tank, it's fuel tank. That tank has a nitro fuel filter in it. So that nitro fuel filter also is a fuel pump. That's why you've got the electrical connection back there. This thing is all designed a little bit for a reason. So we've got a fuel tank at the front for when the sled's facing down, and we've got the pickup at the back for when I'm, you know, wheeling up a hill at Mach speed. And at that wide open throttle, all the fuel is going to be rocked back onto that fuel pump back there, and that fuel pump's going to be delivering fuel up here. And it's got the pickup out of the bottom. That pickup goes through the fuel filter and feeds into the fuel pump. Comes out of the fuel pump, it's going to hit the first fuel rail. It's going to come out of the first fuel rail, and then it's going to go into the second fuel rail that feeds the supplementary injectors. We're going to build that fuel rail. It's up there on the counter. We're not there yet. We'll get to it. Once it goes through that fuel rail, it's going to come up against the Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator we have. That's what's going to keep this thing at a regulated 42 pounds of fuel pressure. Once it goes through the regulator, any overflow fuel that's not being used by the motor will pass through into this surge tank. When this surge tank gets full, it will pass through this one. And then when this thing gets all the way full, so when from the fuel regulator, this 3/4 gallons is all the way full, maybe I'm idling or whatnot, this one will go back to the fuel tank and it will re-enter the fuel tank here. So that's where it's going to recirculate, is from here back into the fuel tank. So there's a recirculation system. We'll pass it through the primary fuel rail, the supplementary fuel rail, back into the surge tank, and then back into the fuel tank. So that way we're going to keep all this horsepower fed with good fuel, never going to run out. We should not have any flames out all the way to the very last drop of fuel, really. This thing really should pump every last drop out of that tank into the surge tank, and the surge tank should be capable of running the thing almost all the way out of fuel. So when we're going deep into the backcountry, it's nice to know that we're not going to have a 1/4 gallon of fuel that's sitting in the bottom of the tank not being used, because it's all custom stuff. None of this is factory, right? I mean, this stuff is all not one-off, but I mean, this was built in a guy's shop. Now, the guy's shop was probably a pretty nice shop. I imagine Paul had quite the setup when he was going hard on this stuff. But that's kind of what we got for the fuel system. I think Boost It's motto was fuel your boost. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to fuel our boost. So, yeah, I should stop talking and start working. So for me, the cleaner and straighter I can get these things to start, the better. Take one more. I don't necessarily like where that one went. I don't like the path. I don't like the path it's on. I want this path here. I had just ran this right through here. You can kind of see the daylight through there. where I ran it, right through there. That's where it was. But if I come over here, I might protect these, I might move these, or I might even switch these out to get rid of the potential for abrasion. But if I run the fuel lines I need here, which are 2, if I run 2 fuel lines right through there, they're gonna come out low there in that space by the motor. You see that? And I'm gonna use that space, and then I'll be able to tuck them out of the way of this. So I'm probably gonna go run this even a little bit further here. Go like that. So I'm still not gonna be rubbing down here, right? It's still gonna miss this, but now it really falls down kind of on top of that oil feed. Now this is going away. This is the feed line, but this is gonna get to turn into an AN line too. So first I'll finish this line I'm doing. I've got a great path. I'm really excited about that. I've chose to do this short little fitting out of here. Now I could have done this thing, right? That would have been straight out. And I could have ran this into it, but look at the height I got here. See, if I ran this 90 onto this, I've got a lot of height there. That would be sunken a little bit, but like at best, that's how much higher it's gonna be. So I opted to use, I didn't use the brass ones. These, one reason is this is already a heavy enough sled. I added so much weight and rivets. Why not get away from the brass and go to the aluminum? It's nice and short, right? So now, when I run the fitting, instead of using this 90, I'll just use one of these straight ones. Also, these are cheaper, I'll bet. So see, you can see the clearance is nice. Nothing's rubbing there where my fuel filter comes out. It's tight. Everything's tight in here, but nothing's rubbing. So now this will come up here. I'm going to throw this fitting on. And see, this is going to just stay nice and low. So, in my opinion, if you're switching to AN fittings, you kind of get a lot of options as far as how you can put stuff together, low profile, have it run. Maybe I had some stuff running under here that I needed to go up and over, and that other one made more sense. But this is going to look just like that right there. Oh, if this stuff touches itself, it's over. This is high temperature silicone tape. I buy it separate from any of my heat stuff. It just doesn't come with it. I use it to secure my heat wrap in place, just so nothing slides on me. There you go. 3 hours, 1 AN fitting. Swapped that with an AN, and then I think like a 40. No, that won't work. Cannot use it. And if I go straight, it's gonna start bending out a little bit too. If I go straight, it will start bending out too far. It'll come out like the here, 90 forward. What about an extender? A little extender. Oh yeah. Love it. I like it a lot. All right, well, I'm not in a horrible spot tonight. I got some of the coolant hose ran. I still need to get clamps for all of the coolant hoses I've got. Yeah, still need quite a few more of those in a few spots. So we'll get that happening. Once I get everything all clamped off, we can start burying more stuff. I've got a couple fittings that I've just been working on my fitting box. I thought I had everything, but there's a couple 120-degree fittings that I'm going to need to be able to go and run the fuel rail. But yeah, I've got a lot of the stuff kind of figured, which unfortunately that's just where a lot of this is. I ended up going and running my fuel rails down through the channel beside the motor, and then all of my coolant hoses ended up through this upper channel that I've talked about in a couple videos. So it kind of looks like a mess now, but these will have to pay out of the way. I'll probably end up tying these out of the way for the charge tube to come up here. But again, you got to kind of put a lot of stuff together just to make sure that you don't end up doing a bunch of routing that has to be redone when you go to start assemble stuff. You know, if you route a bunch of stuff through right here, well, the intercooler's going to go there. None of that's going to work later. So I think now tonight what I'm going to do, I have plenty of work in front of me to make that fuel rail. Lots of holes to tap, holes to drill, making sure they're drilled perfectly straight. So I'm probably going to hop over onto that. It has to get done. And then once I get those a couple fittings here in a few days, I'll wrap up all the fuel system. I will start in on the electrical because there's plenty of nightmare electrical. But really, you know, I've really replaced most of the fittings. This hose I replaced. I try to stay away from these aircraft clamps on my builds. They're useful, I know it, but I switched over to these ear clamps. They're cleaner. They put a lot more uniform pressure on the joint that you're trying to seal. This is going to be a tough one to hit perfect. So, what can I do? So I'm sure it seems like I'm big deal in this, but here's the thing. When you're using a tape measure to do this, this was welded with the jig and it was close. But like, I can see it's off a little bit there. I can see it's off a little bit like that. So it's hard to explain, but if this is off like this, right? Let's say that this one's lower here, then I can make the adjustment up and down with the MPT to a certain extent. But then what the difference is here, where this one's further away or closer to it, I'm gonna have to tap this one deeper. So I have provisions, but I still have to make the spacing real perfect. The spacing's got to be like Johnny on the spot. So you can kind of see right there when I'm hitting that in the middle, they're all pretty perfect. So that's all I'm doing, is I'm making sure that that these things are all very centered up. So, you know, just like looking at this right here, this is kind of showing me that my alignment side to side is close, but the depth, I still have to make this center one deeper. So this is like, you know, here's the thing, I'm not a fabricator at all, and I'm setting myself up I'm doing this the hardest possible way, I'm sure. But in my mind, this is gonna work. I want to do it this way, so I'm gonna do it this way. Anybody that does layout knows how hard this is going to be to get this third one. I think I'm going to get it, but why? I don't even know why I set myself up for this. I could have just put hoses in this or something. I could have done something so this wasn't such a direct fit. But, dun. Anyway, I'm going to give her heck. I did it this way just because I wanted the fittings to support the fuel rail. I thought if I made the fuel rail light enough, I could just support the weight. I would just be able to support the weight off of this. So that's why I did it this way. There was a reason. I do think for anybody that's kind of new to the 4-stroke world and watching me do this, they're probably like, this is pretty cool. And then I'm sure my cousin watching it's like, this is pretty cool. And then I'm sure for anybody that's actually built 4-strokes, like back in this era, they're like, this guy's being dumb. He doesn't need to do any of that stuff. There's a way simpler way to make that sled run, and they're right. But for me, this is two kinds of cool. So I side with the first crowd, hopefully, that's maybe not quite as familiar with these as everyone else and thinks this is pretty cool, because I also think this is really cool. I like doing stuff like this and making it work. I'm hoping by like kind of out of the gate making these two work good, that I can just leave this one. I'll start with it extra long, because see, it's tight still. You know, that one's gonna seal, that one's gonna seal, that one's gonna seal, so they're all gonna seal. I do believe I just got it all the way on hand tight. Let's see which return I have. Nope, it's not going on hand tight, that's for certain. I think I have this pretty good to where it's all gonna seal up, and that's kind of the biggest thing. Probably too late to run this the other direction, just because I don't know that I could. I guess I could tap these deeper if I really deem that necessary. But I think for right now, there's kind of not a lot going on here. This fuel line, I don't know where it's gonna go to or come from yet, so I really can't make it. But these fuel lines are made. I'm not sure what direction that's going to head yet. It's going to go from the fuel pump here to this fuel rail, and then out this fuel rail. I'll come around to this right here, and this will go through the factory fuel rail, primary fuel rail, and then I think I'll come out this fuel rail and down here to the fuel regulator. So that's kind of my plan with all this, but still in the planning phase. A lot could change fast. So anyways, that's where we're at. Moving right along.